Alternative Law Careers Roundtable. So the first one was a very, very, very encouraging start, and we had quite a big panel from around the world, and we got to talk about the dilemma that's facing law students globally, and that is, getting into the profession and the difficulties with examinations and even progressing and all of the roadblocks that they can encounter, right? So that was a very fruitful session. Um, but this time I've decided that going forward, we're going to do very career specific roundtable. So this one is centered around legal tech. For those of you who saw my posts on LinkedIn, so we have in the house guests from Africa, and we have one European sister in the house. So they will introduce themselves shortly. Um, and then, of course, I have my very capable moderator, Shela Teffo, who's quite more prominent than me on YouTube. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm actually learning a lot of. I'm trying to learn some YouTube stuff from her about having a channel. So you can go check her out at, I think it's Sheila, your lawyer bestie, right? You can go check her out and subscribe to her channel, and she does free classes for those preparing for exams, and just talks about the legal profession in our country in general. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to jump into my. Before I jump into my thing, actually, I just want to set the agenda. Um, so we're here to dialogue around alternative careers, right? Because we understand that we're not told about this at university, and we find ourselves on the one-way track, and then at some point it doesn't work out, and then we feel very lost and forlorn. And I want this roundtable to be applicable. That's why I have international guests. I want this to be applicable to whoever may be watching from whichever country in the world. That legal tech is an avenue that you can explore. Okay, and of course, the research is up to you. We are just inspiring you. The professionals here are experts in their field, and they are here to share their journeys and, of course, speak from their specific perspectives, right? So, um, and of course, we want you to have peace of mind ultimately and not to feel pressure to go down a certain route. Okay, so that's my main objective with all of these roundtables, is just to open up your thinking so that you can go and do the research and you can have your options available so that if one doesn't work out, you've got lots of backup plans, right? So that's the agenda and the session. First up, I'm going to speak, and then we're going to have Leah Motsaleli, then we're going to have Leila El Gharbi, and then we were going to have Ruth Gondwe, but she's hasn't joined us yet, and then last but not least, we're going to have the most talkative person on the panel, Ratidzo Murwisi. Okay, so hopefully we'll be able to all be able to get in a word before that. So, but of course, Ratidzo's story is very, very unique, and she will share as per her bubbly personality. Um, so I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves one by one, and then I'm going to get into my address. So all ladies here, so I can't say ladies first. I'll pick. Okay, Rati, you can go first.
Oh, I thought I'd go last like the agenda so that you can just be like, okay, stop talking.
Uh,
Continue. No, that's fine. My name is Ratidzo Murwisi, but you can call me Rati. Everyone calls me Rati. And I am a legal technologist. Botswana's first, which is yay, an achievement for me. I arrived here through a lot of twists and turns, as you guys are going to hear later on. But I'm originally a practicing corporate lawyer that kind of then pivoted into legal technology because of burnout. So, yeah, there's another side of the world after burnout, guys. And it happens to a lot more people than you think. So please don't feel like you're the only one. It happens to way more of us than we'd like to mention, but I am now very open about it, and I think more of us need to be, because I think it then kind of makes it more normal and we kind of get it out of the way and learn how to cope. And I'm here to talk about legal technology and all the things that it can give you and all the options it can give you, because I think we need to talk more about other alternatives to traditional law, because I've realized it seems also saturated. So because it's saturated with a lot of us, we think if you can't get into being a solicitor or barrister or an advocate in South Africa or an attorney in Botswana and Zim as they call it, you think that's the end all be all of having a law degree. But we're here to tell you guys about all the wonderful things that can happen outside of the traditional law. So come along with us on this little wonderful journey we're going to take. And please don't mind me. I am very bubbly, so let's go.
Leah, you want to go next?
Hi guys. Okay, so I'm Leah Motsaleli. I'm a lawyer. I've been admitted for 12 years now. I'll share my story a bit later, but I transitioned into legal technology for to be a bit more present and aware in terms of what I'm doing as a legal professional. And it was a bit easier in the sense that my life became easier in terms of managing it because I'm a mom too. And then through that journey, I then started writing. So I write a lot. So I have a published book, and then I'm working on my second one, and then I teach. And then I also just really travel a lot and trying to figure out different communities in legal tech, only because I think all like reformed lawyers, we're all traumatized the same way. It doesn't matter where you are, which continent you are on. We all share the same story. And for me, I love seeing how other regions actually navigate that, because that also helps me in my own journey to recognize that I'm not too far off in it. I thoroughly enjoy what I'm doing. I'll share more in terms of what I'm currently working on. And yeah, we'll talk more about it.
Lovely. Leila?
Hey, my name is Leila. I am known on LinkedIn normally for my crowns and for sometimes my TikTok, but I don't do them that much now. I used to say that I'm a not too traumatized lawyer now in tech, because sometimes I'm relapsing because now I'm a contractor. So, you gotta pay the bills. So I am still contracting sometimes as a lawyer. Mostly I do innovation and like legal tech consultation, legal ops. I wear many hats, a bit like Leah. I feel like there are not too many crowns that one woman can wear. So I'm an ambassador for a few communities. One being the European Legal Tech Association, the other one being like Legal Ops Uncensored. I created my own community with beautiful souls in legal tech, sharing the queen energy with everyone out there. And I think because I got very frustrated, obviously I was a lawyer, fell into legal tech by accident, actually not really by choice, but I loved it. Some accidents are actually happy. And I think I got frustrated at some point because everyone was saying like, oh yeah, it's not about legal tech first. It's like people, process, and tech. But the people part is often disregarded. Like people use it just to because it sounds nice. And so I think that's why even with Beautiful Souls in legal tech, I'm focused on like talking to people, knowing their stories, because this is how you can drive like real change. If you don't change the culture, if you don't talk to people about what they need, etc., you will never be able to have like true innovation. And people tend to do what they were doing actually in the more like classic part of their career. So even if they are working for law firms, they will act like like the law firms instead of like having their very innovative approach. So that's my I don't know, like maybe my personal battle or my personal like cross to bear, to represent people, making sure that people like embrace their voice, embrace who they are. And as you can hear, I'm French. I mean, I'm North African, obviously, because I look exotic, so this is where I come from. But I was born in France, and this is where my accent comes from, and my qualification as well. And now I'm in the UK, so I will talk to you about the legal tech careers and like whatever is happening in Europe and in the UK at the moment.
Great. So it's actually an entire African panel. If you think about it, so that's cool. But of course, for now, Leila is situated in the UK, so we'll claim that as a European perspective. Okay, so I'm going to kick things off, and if anyone's watching that has followed me for any length of time, or you've spoken to me personally, you would know my primary following and the people, the group that I serve, and not just in South Africa. Now it's grown to, within the continent of Africa, and even gone beyond that. So I tend to sympathize. I'm also an empath, Leila, so I sympathize with the baby lawyers. Okay, some people have taken umbrage at that term, but for the most part, it's been really cute. People have embraced it and call themselves. So it's become their kind of branding as well. And of course, I brand myself as law mom because um, it kind of goes with the baby part, right? So in having worked with them, been exposed to that group of entry level professionals, they just graduated, they're trying to find their way in the getting into the profession. They've been told that there's a certain path to follow. At university, all of us got sold that same fantasy. Okay, I'll use a euphemism. I won't say pack of lies. I'll say we got sold a fantasy, and somewhere down the line, that fantasy stopped or reality hits broke in and hijacked that fantasy, and so we were left bereft. A lot of them, when once they hit like a certain point where they don't get internships, or here we call it practical vocational training. For advocates, it's called pupillage. I think in the UK as well, which is what I did. Um, when that doesn't pan out, you start applying, you don't get in, then of course it's what now, right? And then because you see your peers running down a certain, all running down the same hill, and of course we're all heading towards the cliff, but we can't see it. And then we're like, if we don't have what everybody else is getting, and they're all getting positions at firms, and people start gaslighting themselves, they start wondering, did I do law for the right reasons? And so those are the kinds of messages that I've been receiving for the last 4 years. Just all of those kinds of despair. And of course, the first thing I have to tell them is that the system lied to you. It's not about you, not you. Okay, so the thing is, you probably were not told that you needed to plan for this. You didn't get told that you needed a backup plan, because here in South Africa, and it is borne out by research, that there aren't enough positions for every single law graduate that graduates out of university. There aren't enough positions for them to become candidate attorneys or interns, and then they end up competing for so few positions, and then it's fierce. And then some of them sit at home for like a year, 2 years, and then they will commiserate, and they start feeling sorry for themselves. And so the thing is, we can't change the system. As much as this roundtable is run or conducted under the auspices of my candidate attorney advocacy group, which also wants to lobby for systemic change in our South African space, legal profession. But at the same time, we have to provide practical avenues, or we have to do what we can to get law students, graduates to think out of the box. So that's where this roundtable idea came from. Initially, it was going to be just one, but then in talking with Sheila and maybe a little bit with Rati, I realized maybe we're going to do a series where we open up various nuanced fields within the profession, and we can just get people thinking. So this roundtable, this specific one, like with the others, is meant to alleviate that burden of, okay, university lied to you. other lawyers lied to you. It made it look easy to get in. And of course, we have the exams, which for some of them, even if they get into firms, the exams become a way of preventing them from going further because there's one or two papers that just stump them and they can't pass it. And if they can't pass it, they can't get admitted, they can't get called to the bar. And so they float in this twilight zone of they can't practice, they've got these outstanding papers, they're so tired, they can't even attempt it for the fourth or fifth time. Who are they in the profession? What kinds of jobs can they apply for? So this is also serving to mitigate that kind of situation where if they can get out early enough, then they can maybe opt to do those exams at a later stage, or even step away and then do something else legal in legal tech or legal ops or whatever, come back and attempt the exams. So you don't have to stall, you don't have to feel like the LLB that you studied was useless or it was a waste of money. Okay, and we only think like that when we are feeling down in the dumps and feeling in despair, right? So we want to also, like with Leila's idea with the crowns, we want to raise people up. We want to say, even if you're feeling that way, all is not lost because we have all of these success stories, and we have the other roundtables where we talk about other types of careers in the legal field. So people are inspired. Number two, they can take charge of their careers again, and they can maybe go and sit and plan, or try and claw some of it back, or go back to the drawing board, recalibrate, maybe go and do more professional development and upskill themselves. It's there to this is there to be catalytic, right? It's there to um, get the ball rolling, so you don't have to come to that point where you feel like you've studied for nothing, or that something is wrong with you because what's happening with your friends not happening with you, right? And that's one. If ever I can get a message across, it's so simple, but the reason it won't happen for you in the same way is because you are not your friend. Okay, it's a very, very simple but very profound message. Your journey is different. Your background is different. Your resources are different. You might have a different aptitude. All of us think that we all are headed towards a law firm. You might be someone that is, or we're all headed for the courtroom rather. So you might feel like you're an introvert. You want to stay in house. Okay, so if you constantly follow the stereotypical presentation of the legal profession, then of course you're going to feel out of place. But as I've encouraged the ladies here in their respective slots to just be themselves, right? If you bring all of that to your career planning, then of course you can see what type of career within the legal field is best suited for me. I don't like the courtroom, and then that you should be able to say that's okay. Okay, because not everybody is cut out for the courtroom. That's a fact. Okay, some of us get to wing it, like we stand up and we just say what we have to say. But for more, and then for some of us, we come away and we cringe and we hope we never have to do that again. And that's okay. Okay, if that's not you, that's okay. There are other avenues within the legal profession that may fully cater to the type of person that you are. So where you don't even have to deny yourself or discount yourself to say, I got to fit into this mode. I got to become something else. I got to put on a cape. I have to be assertive when I'm not assertive. I got to be loud when I'm naturally a quiet person. You don't have to do any of that. Okay, so part of your career planning should also factor in your personality type and your talents, your natural abilities, your ethics, your value systems. All that factors into the kind of professional you're going to become. And of course, if you are in the right space within the profession, you're going to be able to express all of those things in the best way. And you're going to feel very fulfilled. Okay, like Leah said, she's like a pig in mud. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. Okay, you want to be in that mental space. I'm in that mental space. It's stressful. but you're happy at the same time. It's like you might have had to go through a certain journey, but you now found a space in the profession where you get to be yourself and you get to also help others with the experience that you have gained. So we want you ultimately, if you find that legal tech is the space for you, after the session, go and search these lovely ladies out on LinkedIn, connect with them. The best conversations happen afterwards. So, you know, hopefully, if one person is redirected, I think as Sheila said this to me, even if it's one person, okay, we've saved one person from a moment of despair or feeling like all is lost. Why did I do this law thing? Okay, so that's my heart, and that's a South African, I guess, perspective and position, and um, what I want it to do for our guys, and inevitably for the rest of whoever might watch this video, that you would feel that this is something I can do or something I want to explore. At least you've got the ball rolling, mentally. So I can very easily dominate this conversation, but I know I have stiff competition on the far right hand side of my screen. So, so I'm not going to talk anymore. That's just me, I guess, kicking things off. And then now we're going to go to Leah. So Leah's going to talk about opportunities in South Africa for careers in legal technology. And then, of course, Leah, feel free to take it to other places as well.
Thank you so much. So what I decided to do today is just to move through in terms of, because I've done a lot of things in legal tech, and then share what I've seen in the market, just so I can try to put people into context around what is required in terms of how they move. So like previously I said, I'm an admitted attorney. I practiced for a while. I didn't like it. I was a very young mom. I had my twins when I was 19, second year of varsity. And so my perspective, so when I was an associate, how I was looking at legal work was very different from my peers. So we could be same year associate level, and I didn't enjoy the fact that I was leaving home and they were asleep, coming home and they were asleep. On weekends, I'm tired, I'm irritable. It just wasn't me. So very early on in my career, I made the shift. But I recognized that I am naturally loud. And by loud, I mean I attract a lot of attention naturally. And at that stage, I had this perception that the legal profession doesn't like that. Do your thing in the background and then don't be too loud about it. And so when I left corporate law, I then decided, let me start my consulting company. So I did for about a year. And it happened that, because then I had my last born, that I needed a nanny, and then the nanny didn't show up, and I had to go see my client. And when you're starting out, things are tough. And luckily, the client actually agreed for us to do a Skype thing. And when we did that, it's like a light bulb moment hit. This was back in 2017 and 2016, yeah. And then I just realized I could actually do this legal thing online. It had never dawned on me because nobody ever told me. And it's not to say that I'd never interacted with tech solutions within a law firm environment. I did. I was using a practice management software. And when I look back, I don't think we were all that excited to do it, because you just think this tech is standing in the way of you doing the actual legal work. And that's why when I'm having these conversations, I'm like, I actually do get it. I understand how people can feel around how, adoption of legal tech can be a challenge. And then through that, I then built up a legal tech startup. So in essence, and just to preface, there's a lot of misconception around legal technology and tech law. I've been going through these events, talking to younger professionals, and a lot of them think what we do actually has to do with the actual law, the practicing of the law. And I have to keep telling people, no, I don't practice law, my baby. I don't do law. I don't give people advice, and I don't want to. I don't like it anymore. What I do, I actually work on the technology side end of it. And so legal tech is, in essence, technology used in the service of delivering legal services by lawyers. And then tech law has to do with the regulations that actually regulate the technology behind it. For example, like the AI Act that's come into place in Europe, and things like that. So that is tech law. And I still think it's a fascinating area. If I was still practicing, I would definitely try to hone myself as an expert in that area, only because I believe it's still so new that you could actually dominate. So if you decided today, hey, I want to solely focus on this type of law, you could outbeat a lot of people, even though you're young in your career, because it's such a new field and it's constantly evolving. Unlike all the other areas, your civil law, your criminal law, it has decades worth of people who are the go-to one. Whereas with these ones, you could actually be the go-to person. So yeah, legal tech startup. In essence, it's so funny. I actually thought to myself, I needed to preface this. One, you need to be very curious. You cannot be in legal tech if you don't have a naturally inquisitive mind. So you constantly have to really be curious, delve into whatever it is that you're doing. And I say this because when I was building my legal tech startup, I actually built out the website itself. So it was, think of it as, for us in South Africa, Take a Lot, where you could actually pick out a contract. So in it, I had a quick design, very yellow, because I thought, yellow is bright, it's attention, it's vibey, it's exciting, it's a tech startup. And it had a description of the type of contract, when you would use it, the typical blah, blah, blah. The target market obviously was small businesses and startups. And then you could actually work through it, pay, and then download it. And for me back then, it was like such a great thing because one, I only had to review those contracts, I don't know, maybe quarterly or so, depending on whatever latest, regulations or updates, whatever that looks like. And two, I mean, think about it. If you draft a single contract, you put it on the internet, and then you are just marketing it out, you're constantly getting revenue. You don't need to do it all the time. And that is why you find that, and what I love about legal technology is its capability of actually scaling so hard. Because at our height, the legal tech startup had a presence in over 8 provinces in the country. And we had a presence of Lesotho. So I was working with some lawyers in Lesotho specifically catering for that. And I mean, if I stuck to it long enough, I think it would have been bigger by now. But the point is, there's no limit in terms of choosing how you do what you do. And you really need to get into it, because a lot of people will say, but Leah, what do you have to study? Fine, you can study multiple different courses, like data analyst, project management, whatever it is. But in the same way that the legal industry is so broad, legal technology is that broad too, because there's so many ways that you can attack it. At that stage, I interfaced through legal technology as a legal tech startup founder. And what that looked like was literally anything that you can think of around being a tech founder, from developing a pitch, so understanding business modeling, networking, going to pitching competitions, harassing investors, going into incubators, accelerators, you name it, we were there. So it's really, you need to be insanely curious, and you really need to enjoy this space. Otherwise, you won't enjoy it, because back then I got a lot of pushback. I remember I used to be told, but you went to school, you studied so hard, you got admitted as an attorney. What are you doing with your life? This is so pointless. What are you doing? You could be in court with a gown. And I'm like, well, that's not for me. And it takes a certain level of knowing yourself and what you want to actually get through the noise. So I don't want people to see legal tech as an out of traditional space. This is not a second-rate career. It's very serious. We have incredibly talented professionals across the world who have dedicated their lives to this profession. It's not a, if I can't make it in the traditional space, let me try out legal tech. No, you have to be extremely passionate and know that this is what you want, because the same level of dedication, of studying, of networking, of understanding whatever it is that you're doing that is required in the traditional space, you are going to require that in legal tech. It will just look different. And while I was building the legal tech startup, I just realized not a lot of people know it. And so what I did, I started writing about it. That's where the first book actually came out. But also, lawyers are very vain, and you need to get yourself some leverage. And I thought, in order to get leverage, I need to get that credibility. So I partnered with Utah, and then we worked on a book, and they're like, yay, this looks great. And then we shipped it out. And that for me was so empowering because, one, I think we often let foreign folks lead the conversation, whereas we need to take ownership of the journey. And I could easily do my thing in the background. Obviously, I mean, naturally I can't, but ideally I could do my thing in the background. But I intentionally choose to be loud about the journey, about what I'm learning, about legal technology as it is, because there needs to be some form of documentation and ownership around that particular journey, so that no one can come years from now and say that, hey, we did this for you. It's the other way around. And it makes it so much easier when you are dominating a market, that when people actually, and I cannot tell you how this is so funny. Like whenever someone wants to invest in local legal tech startups, or if they want to enter our ecosystem, I'm top of their list. You'll hear, hey Leah, we're looking to invest in this startup. Have you heard about them? I'm like, oh, that's Ania Ibile, you know, the founder, you know. and that is why it's so important. One, because for me personally, I want to win, and I don't care where that is, what that looks like. So I need to dominate whatever space that I'm in. And that means if I'm a point of entry and understanding into the ecosystem, I could actually leverage that in order to get some coins, because ultimately you want to survive. And that's the other thing about being in legal tech. You need to be very creative around how you actually end up getting your coin, purely because, especially in our market, the same way that there's a challenge for the traditional folks to actually get normal jobs, the same can be said for us too, because it's so limited. And typically what they do, especially with the law firms, they train from within. So you'll find that even if a person is not inclined into or prone to legal technology, they will build out someone who has something, and then they'll just grow into wait, should I wait for her?
No, she can still hear you.
Oh, she can still hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then from legal tech, I did that, and then I started teaching, which was, for me, was very strategic in the sense that you can't, change does not happen in isolation, and I believe that you can't think that you can change the industry if you're doing it alone. So I started teaching a lot. I started writing, only because if you want something to really, really change, you have to take everyone along with you. And the power of social media is that it's able to scale trust. And so you don't need to be at every event every other day. But what you should be doing is pushing out really high quality content, or funny, or whatever it is that is within your brand that can actually resonate with the next person, so that they actually build, whether they agree or not. But they also know that whenever they think about legal tech, so for example, when I think of Leila, I think crowds, then I know she's all about community. She's all about legal ops. Like, it resonates. She doesn't need to tell me anymore that, hey, this is what I believe in. because that's how she's positioned herself and carried herself. And so, if you are someone who's also looking into to get into legal tech, I hope you are very clear and aware of who you are and what you want to achieve, um, in order to, I don't know, actually leverage a career here. And then from there, I then transitioned to business development, which was natural, for me, in the sense that, I love talking to people. And BD is all about building relationships, creating opportunities for the sales guys, closing those relationships, managing those relationships. And I enjoy people. I enjoy having conversations with people work-wise. Um, so it's quite important for you to know yourself and your skill level and what that looks like. So that is also an opportunity. So if your skill is within sales or isn't within that area, you can still thrive within a legal tech environment, because at that stage I was working for a legal technology company. So it's very important for you to understand where you sit. So what I'm doing now is, in essence, consulting, which combines everything. So all the years that I've been working, I'm bridging the gap, that huge disconnector between lawyers and tech vendors. They all really want the same thing. It's just that most times they're not communicating in a way that makes sense to both of them. So one will say it in this way, the other will say it in this way, and then there's a mismatch. And then next thing, a solution is adopted, and then it's not really used. And then someone will say, oh, then what was the point of us actually buying this solution? And then it's a lose-lose for both sides. And so mine is to actually be in the middle of that. And I actually enjoy it. I love the fact that I also get to see different solutions from around the world, not only just locally. And I'm leveraging all of my talents, my network, my ability to talk to people, just being able to see different things across the board and be able to connect it to make it make sense for the next person, because I also don't want them to struggle. And at my core, it's all about legal tech. Like, it doesn't matter which shape or form or how you look at it for me. And it's very rare to find people who can mesh their passions with their work. And I'm very fortunate that I found that at a very young stage. It's not always great. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, this year I had like the hardest year ever. I couldn't even wake up. But there's some things where, like, for me, legal tech is like one of those things. I can do this. Like, I have a bigger mission than just me. And for me, it's also around, I need to live my dreams out so loud that my children see me do it. It's very important for me, because children don't listen. You can tell them all you want. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. They do what you do. They move how you move. Because I remember when I grew up, I mean, my mom was a nurse. I would see her baking. Like, when you're stumbling in the middle of the night, going to the bathroom, and then, with your squeaky eyes, you see your mom. She's either baking cookies or she was studying in the middle of the night. When I wake up, when it's time to go to school, she's packing up those things. She's going to work to be a nurse. I'm going to school. And whether she said it or not, I learned that, I actually need to work hard if I actually want to get something. And I think it's such a valuable lesson for a lot of us, because there's this concept that, especially nowadays, because everything is so loud, that people have this perception that things come easy just because we don't always share it or are comfortable, because it's about comfort level. If I'm not comfortable to tell you that I'm not okay, and I'm only comfortable to tell you I'm going through this, you need to take it. But it doesn't mean just because today I'm not telling 40,000 people that, hey, I'm not okay, does not mean that I'm not okay. It's my choice. But a lot happens in the background for all the wins, for all the disappointments. And you, if you're going to get into legal tech, you also need to be comfortable with that failure. And you also need to understand that South Africa, if you're here, is still, we're at our infancy. I mean, back from when I started till now, we've actually grown a bit in the sense that, for example, we have the South African Legal Tech Network. I encourage you to also have a look at them. They're doing crazy work. But I didn't have that. So most of the people that I was looking out to were people like Conan Levy. I think I saw him on Twitter. I searched hashtag legal tech, and he was there. He was talking about. I'm like, who's this? And then I harassed him, and then I followed him on LinkedIn, and then so you start actually learning about the community. So it's important if you're going to enter this industry here. I'm not sure about other areas. You need to be very aware that we're still at our infancy. So if you're going to do it, be very clear around the people that you surround yourself with, the community, and you actually like it. So don't come here as a second option. And I'm going to say it again. We are not here to play. We take our things seriously. I mean, we have communities, for example, like Clock, where I sit on the Voice and Brand Council. It's the biggest legal ops organization in the world. That's actually where I met Leila when we went to a conference in Vegas last year. So it's a huge series of committed professionals. The same way that we have our bodies, they also have our bodies. So it's not I don't know what to do with my life. Let me know. I really would take offense if you did that, because it's great. I mean, for example, I was the first African lawyer to be recognized by the American Bar Association for my work in legal tech. And that is the nature of our profession, legal tech. It's global. So if in as much as you are here, you need to start thinking about it from a global perspective. How will this enable me to collaborate with my colleagues from, the other side of the world? How will I connect with whoever? So in as much as, in entrepreneurship, they say, start local, think global. It's the same here too. Purely because of the level that we are at. We can't justify you just focusing here. So even if you want to build a legal tech startup, don't just focus here. If you want that VC money, the market will be too low if you're really going to just think, let me just focus on South Africa. You have to think bigger. Probably think of the other bigger areas and countries on the continent. But you can't just think, and that's the beauty which I really enjoy about legal technology. You get to meet a lot of people and you start thinking differently. And I think the fear that Lisa was talking on earlier comes from the fact of lack of exposure, because you go to varsity, you see this is what you're told, and then that's it. But the moment you get to see what other people are doing, it's like you cannot be what you can't see. And beyond taking ownership of the African legal tech story, it's also important for people who look like me to see that, it's possible. And if that's my legacy, then so be it. I make no qualms, and I'm very unapologetic about it, only because I think you have to be so, I don't know, or maybe I just love it too much, guys. I'm gonna get emotional, so I'm gonna stop. Someone stop me.
I'll have to be that person.
Yes.
But actually, we are enjoying listening to you. Like, as you're speaking, I'm taking so many, pointers from what you're saying, because, I'm not in legal technology, but, you emphasize knowing who you are, emphasizing creativity, also emphasizing curiosity. And I think those three things are so important. It doesn't matter the space. It's amazing how all of us on this round table are lawyers, but because of creativity, we're in different spaces and we are in non-traditional legal careers, which is so wild because all of us were trained to look at litigation and court and all of that, but we are in all these different spaces. And I just love how you were not complacent. You were not satisfied with what you knew. You wanted to know more. You were curious, and you were constantly curious. So I think that is inspiring, and it's something that I want everybody who's listening to take away from this conversation that you need to be curious. You literally can't be what you've never seen. So expose yourself, go out there, listen to these types of conversations, attend events, network, and all these other things that are available for you to do. So Leah, thank you so much for sharing. Your passion is contagious. As you were speaking, I was writing and I was like, yes, this is for me. This is for me as well. So thank you so much for that. So up next, we're going to be speaking, Leila's going to be speaking on the UK perspective. So to guide that conversation and just further elaborate on legal technology, I'd also just like you to explain exactly what legal technology is. For somebody who has no idea, and they're thinking, okay, well, I have a law degree and I'm somewhat passionate about technology. How do we marry the two? What exactly is it that you do as somebody who is in legal technology? Leila? The mic. I think it's the mic that's off.
So, yeah, sure. Because I click on it once and then it just myself again. So I felt like I was just on a loop of. So yeah, I'll tell you about legal tech. There were just a few things when Leah was talking. It's a good way to start about how I started my career, because before I just touched upon it very shortly. But it will explain how I came across legal tech in the UK. And I think it's a journey that we all came in legal tech by accident, because it was not obvious. Now the career paths are more obvious, but when I even started more officially 4 years ago, it was not that obvious. And I really agree with Leah that it looks like when we talk about legal tech, or when we are invited into panels, that legal tech is almost like a career for losers. So you lost, you didn't succeed as a lawyer, and so we're all burnt out and desperate, and so it was oh yeah, the default choice is now legal tech or legal ops. And I'm this is not it. It's most of the time we had to go through that route to understand what actually works for us. And most of the time we are burnt out because the system is rigged. The system is not made for us. So when you come into a career that help you innovate and make things focus on efficiency, you're yeah, that's it. This is what I needed. I needed that tech before. I needed this. So I think it's more life is made in a beautiful way, and unfortunately you have to go through hurdles most of the time before you find your right path or what's right for you. So yeah, so because I see most of the time people are oh yeah, it's almost a second, not oh, you could not make it, then yeah, you have options. No, you gotta be passionate, but obviously you don't need to know what you want or where you want to go. And this is maybe that's why I want to share my story very briefly, just to understand. So as we mentioned, it's we are a full African panel, but I was born and raised in France. So my parents were immigrants. So, and that is important because as much as I always wanted to be a lawyer, that was as well my dad's dream, maybe my grandmother's dream as well. The only maybe successful careers for people coming from Tunisia were either doctor or lawyer. So I think once I voiced that, yeah, I wanted to be a lawyer, maybe when I was 4 or 5 years old, everyone was yeah, this is the career path for you.
That's a very African thing.
Yeah, it is very African. Yeah. Or Indian, it's the thing in certain regions of the world. Now engineers is coming as well on the top 3. So it's 3 career choices, and the rest, nope. It's as we say in French, à la poubelle, in the bin. So and as well, because my parents were immigrants, I was raised to blend in. I was raised to understand that I would suffer. And this is something I often say in panels, that so when I started my career in law 10 years ago and I suffered, I thought it was normal because, even my parents prepared me to that. And when I started law school, they groomed us to believe that suffering was part of the play. Like you want to play the game, then, you got to suffer. You have to do all the extra hours. And if you burn out, it means that you're weak. So when I saw that, first of all, like I had like different issues, I have like health issues, I'm like slightly, like different, etc. I started to be like frustrated, and as well, like I have a big personality, a bit maybe like Leah. I don't know how you did your job, like Lisa and Shela, but I think you have like only like big personalities in the room. So, like I felt like I really wanted to be myself, and most of the time, like people don't let you. But I still like found, like managed to find a way to always like bring my personality. People used to call me Sunshine, like just like used to be like quite cute when I was a kid, not a kid actually. I was like 20 something. But yeah, so that's for the beginning. So about 6 years ago, I moved to the UK after a year break, and I had like a very classic career in France. I was an employment lawyer. I qualified as avocat. So I dreamt of wearing the robe all my life, the gown, like the avocat gown, like, the black one. And then I ended up not wearing it because I moved to the UK. I did everything that immigrants' parents like would be like, oh my God, what are you doing? I went on a 1,000 miles hike, like a not made normally for North African people, just like, it's not what parents envisioned for me. I had a break, and then I came to the UK and I had to work as a waitress. And I had literally to work my way up in order to get back to a career in legal. And this is how I realized when I came to the UK that actually people would hire me for once I started knowing like my worth. So I would apply for lawyer's job in international companies. And so that's why I'm telling people, even though the people who want to come in the UK that are like, like from outside the UK, is always like trying to find what you are good at. I speak 5 languages, and this is definitely a differentiator. So then I started like to work into companies. And when I walked into companies, because I was contracting, I started doing by accident legal ops, because I would observe what was done in another company. I would join a new one and then be like, oh, suggesting change. Maybe we can do that. Or maybe like if we want to get streamlined processes, maybe that would be more efficient. And, like this is how it started, like to be like more innovative, more curious, because when you're a contractor, you have to find your identity quick and to make sure that you're doing your job right. So being a natural communicator, like communicate with people, understanding their needs and like solve them, and maybe like add like a few, add a bit of your spice. So this is how I understood I was creative. Because before, like, I had an assignment, I would do it. And then in the UK, I don't know, it's like my creativity was found. And I applied for a job in 2020. And I applied for a job that was called like corporate lawyer project manager. And in my head, I was applying for a corporate lawyer job. So I was like, you know what? I've done corporate law, like not the most sexy law in the universe, but I can do it. And when I had the interview, the guy told me, actually, we call this corporate lawyer, but you won't really be practicing law. You will be more like selling a legal tech tool and, like do the project management to, work your clients, through the, like implementation of the tech. And I was like, oh my God, even better. If I don't have to practice law. So, like for me, it was like such a good news. And that was for me like discovering like a new role. And obviously it was hard because sales is a totally different role, but I had the opportunity to meet so many people, from in-house lawyers to people in law firms to people in Big Four, that had like very different issues. And that role, for the first time in my life, helped me use all the natural skills that came to me, like being an empath, trying to understand, like people's problem, how to implement things, how to be curious. So all of these skills that I had that actually were useful, but that I could never really use properly in a traditional role, I had to use it. And even I was allowed to be creative. So I started to become like active on social media, and I discovered myself a creativity I didn't know. I knew I was smart, but I didn't know I was creative. And because I was in a good environment where I was allowed to do whatever I wanted, I started like even like posting TikToks. I started like becoming more active on LinkedIn and like having opportunities coming to me rather than waiting for them to come. And so this is how I made a name. And this is why maybe like my point of view would be to emphasize about the environment rather than sometimes knowing what you want. Like I literally fell into legal ops and legal tech by accident. But when I did fell in love and fell by accident into that new career path, I made a conscious choice to be more creative, to see what was there already. And I quickly understood that actually so many people were faking it. Not that, like everyone is saying like, like fake things, but it's actually easy. It's the right period now to come into this career and become an expert, because people are starting. Like tech was available for everyone in every industry everywhere, but for some reason like the legal industry is always like a bit late. So now it's starting to pick up. So now is a great time to start a career in legal tech and legal ops, because people are still figuring things out. So with a new set of eyes, you can come and still like find solutions, because there is no like university, like, like giving like legal ops degrees. Like people like are doing like maybe like some qualifications here and there, but that are not like really official. So that's why I'm saying it's all about experience. It's about like using like our brain cells as they should be, like thinking about like efficiency, using as well like our heart, like and being an empath. It's something that I learned as well the hard way, is to never assume. So because I used to be a lawyer, and I'm still am in some kind of ways, I would assume people's problems. So when I would go into meetings, sometimes I would be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're going through. And that sometimes like stopped opportunities, because I assumed too soon too much. So that is something that I would like advise people. Don't assume, just always be curious. Ask open questions. Like if you don't, people love to speak about themselves. So like, and just be patient. It's a very hard game to tell people to look at what they did wrong, because if you ask a lawyer, oh, what's going on, so most of the time they would be like, oh, it means that they have to be honest about the issues in the past. Maybe the contract we forgot to terminate and is now costing 200K to the company, or like, like these kind of issues are very hard to look at. And so as a legal tech consultant, or sometimes legal ops, you come across as the person to, like no one likes you, because you're literally like looking under the hood. So as what I wanted to say here is that legal tech or legal ops now is the new sexy, is the new good career, is like it's the new black. Literally, like everyone like wants to add like legal ops to the job title, but it comes as well with a lot of rejection. It comes with a lot of pressure, because you are there normally to innovate, but like you have a lot of resistance. So that's why it's not for the weak, but in the same time, it's really interesting. That's why I really agree with Leah when she mentioned like about the passion, because I think if you're not passionate about change, it can be disheartening. Like it's not as sexy as it sounds. Like you go to club, you go to Vegas, and you're like, oh my god, like you're treated like royalty. You feel like every vendor wants to speak to you, if you are obviously in-house or working for a law firm. Otherwise, if you're a vendor, you're not treated like royalty. You have to pay to be treated like royalty as well. Like depending on where you are in the spectrum, vendor or buyer, there are like some rules and some things, but it's really interesting. I really loved being a vendor. I love now being a consultant, and I'm now maybe like going back in-house. And maybe in-house is the best thing, because like everyone wants to talk to you. So if you like dating analogies, you're literally the hot young girl, you know, like in the campus, you know, like everyone wants to talk to you. So and this is why I would advise people who are considering change but now are in-house or in a law firm, take advantage of your status. Maybe like, I don't know if it's politically correct to say that, but it's YouTube, so who cares? And if you're there until like that now, maybe we're 1 hour in the the podcast, the episode, I think, so you are one of the brave ones, so you deserve that free tip. You should take advantage of that before changing career, because the day you become a vendor or the day you become a consultant, it will be very hard for you to get people to give you time. Now is the time where you are considering and you are like safe into your position to have people talk to you about like career tips, like vendors like speaking to you, or other like colleagues that are already in-house, because they don't consider you as a threat or as a potential like shark or as someone who just wants to sell them something. So if you want to know more, now is the time. And as well, like we are not trees. So this is something, I love that phrase. So our careers can change and it's okay. I've been 10 years in legal and I've changed so many times, but I believe that it's my life is like this. I'm someone who's creative. I'm someone who likes to explore. And I never knew I would move to the UK. And I moved to the UK 6 years ago and now I'm still there going strong. But because I allowed myself to go outside of my comfort zone. And I went through hard times, even like in 2023, there was like a global layoff in my company. I lost my job. It was a bit complicated, and the market was actually very hard, like very bad for a year or so. And now we're starting to pick up again. And so this is why I went as an entrepreneur and consultant. And now I'm considering going back to working for someone, because I want to do entrepreneurship for Beautiful Souls, but I don't want to do it for the legal tech part. For some reason, it takes so much energy to do your own marketing, your own sales, etc. I just want to do the job. You know, I'm passionate about legal tech, and I don't want to do like all the other things. But it's a personal choice. It's because I want to do things a certain way, and obviously I have like aspirations, and I want to be in a company that values me and that will not ask me to shrink myself again. So this is something that is very important for me. Now that I have found my voice, I find it very frustrating, even now, when I told, let's say, to some friends that I was looking for a job, and they were like, oh, maybe you should do that. No, I don't want to. I want a company that knows who I am and what I'm doing and still stands by me. I didn't fight all these years to make sure that I was owning my stories and make sure that others were owning their stories for me to have to shrink myself just to work in certain law firms. No, I don't want to be miserable again. I just and I believe that is possible. It's like I'm someone who's passionate. I'm someone who's actually good at what I'm doing. And I'm very curious, which is actually one of the skills that you need. Like people will tell you, you don't need a PhD in coding. You don't need like actually anything. You just need to have an understanding of what's going on in the legal industry, being curious enough to be able to speak to engineers, etc., and understanding like what is possible to do, because like you can promise wonders, but actually we are limited by what the tech can do, and just put two and two together. So yeah, so if I have like some advice to tell people, is like just like identify who you are, and it's okay if you don't know what you want to do, but at least identify the skills that will bring you into a career, and just like make sure that people see that. And that's where social media like LinkedIn is very important, because anyone can start. Anyone can like start sharing whatever they want to share. Like obviously like try to bring like something maybe new, but it's more like this is how people know you, and this is how I started. Even I met Leah, I knew her before I met her in Vegas a couple of years ago. She knew me as well from LinkedIn. I'm known for my initiative with the crowns, And that, for me, like, was very important. I'm not even sure like how I came with the idea with the crowns, but I just know that I come from a very humble background, and I believe that we can create our own destiny. And like having women smiling, when I take pictures of them and they are wearing crowns and they feel proud, and for a moment they feel like, yeah, I can do whatever I want, or I can use my voice and I don't have to be miserable. I am bigger than the job I'm having at the moment. This is, I think, what makes me happy. Like it's like we all are passionate about something, and I'm passionate about people. So if I can have a job which where I can like focus on people and at the same time like improving their life through tech or through like different initiative, that is what I want. And I think that's why it's that would be my advice. Like try and find your identity, and when you are in interviews, like gauge whether like your personality would be a problem or not. So, and obviously like it's not like saying like, oh yeah, we don't care about others, but I think like these are careers where you are allowed to be creative. So if you are not sorry about who you are, normally people should not see it as something non-genuine. And yeah, the same advice as before. Maybe like be more present at events. Use social media, network. Even if you don't want to post, like you can comment under people's posts. Like we put a lot of effort, like creating those posts. So, like commenting, reaching
It
out.
helps. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And plus, people would ghost you. For example, I was ghosted before when I was messaging people, and now they are the one like reaching back to me. And sometimes I
I
don't
love
have.
when that happens.
Yeah. So now I'm the one ghosting them. So, but not because I want to. It's just because now I understand when you I don't want to say LinkedIn famous, but when you start like having like some kind of like people start to know you, you actually don't have time to reply to everyone. So, but you can find friendship. And so, as of legal tech in the UK right now, what I see is that there is a lot of law firms are hiring, but like rapidly, about like legal technologists. They are hiring for legal engineers. So I am. So I never replied to the question, what is legal tech? It's just like, I think for legal tech is just like technology made to improve lawyers' life. So you think like, I don't know, you are working in litigation, there are like a lot of e-discovery tools, meaning that you have to review a lot of documents in the same time in order to write your opinions. There are tools out there to help you review the documents. It's still like a bit manual, but at least you can put them into categories. And so when it comes to send all the documents to the judge, etc., you have them already classified, and you can, like then have a lawyer, like maybe like doing a second pass review and see like how you can like defend your case. And they are like for not just for litigation, they are for contracts. I used to work even like on like due diligence or like joint venture. And so this is when companies start like panicking and thinking, oh my god, what our contracts are saying. And so they never did the job before, but suddenly they're like, oh, we need a tool. Or usually they do it via Excel, and someone is hired to manually review like all the documents and ticking some boxes. But there are tools out there that help you like review contracts, and so you can then classify them and understanding, okay, though, so those contracts like terminate, have like, I don't know, like 2-3 years duration. Termination period is that. Change of control clause say that, like we cannot actually transfer the contract, or we can. So there are like different tools that help you review the information that you have or actually automate. So it's literally what can simplify the life of the lawyer, because most of the time we don't have enough hours on the day, and it costs so much to hire a lawyer. So these tools are there literally to normally make it quicker. Not all the techs are making more quicker. Some are just to be able to to be able to be more efficient or to have somewhere the information. So at least it's somewhere, and it's not just what we used to say, like in French, like in the head, in the brain of the contract owner. So it means that if that lawyer leaves the company, then no one knows what's going on with the contract. So I think it's as well like that, where we are in a period where we have to be very diligent, where there are like so many compliance requirements, and where governance is such a thing. So you cannot afford not to know what's going on in your contract. So, or what's going on in your company. So I would say like legal tech is revolving around that. And now like there are more legal ops roles. In the UK, it's still a bit more developed than in the rest of Europe, because I used to cover EMEA. But there are still things, as you mentioned as well, like for Africa as well as South Africa. It's just like there are like local needs that are very important to identify, because most of American tools cannot actually understand or comprehend the like what do you need like in certain companies. So I remember making business with South Africa, and they have like very specific like requirements for corporate and governance, like where we were acquiring business in South Africa, even like for the ownership. So in the UK or in maybe like in the US, it would be like you cannot scan a document and identify, I don't know, like the skin color or something like that, and that would be like a requirement in certain country to make sure that you are meeting like the certain like criteria. So there are things that are not that's why I love the local legal tech hubs, because they really understand like what one country or one industry may need, because depending on the requirements it would be different. So yeah, so lots of now the job market is picking up again in the UK. In France and in other countries, like is slowly getting there, but legal ops is definitely the new hot thing. Like now even like in-house people are very much more concerned about this, and so where it was more like an ad hoc role, now they are like more dedicated legal ops roles to improve efficiency. So I would say now is the great time to get there. And as a tip, I would say like focusing on the skills on the CV. So if you, let's say your role doesn't say legal ops, just make sure that under each role, if you did like a legal ops, something with streamlining contracts or reviewing contracts or anything like that, just make sure that you highlight this in your CV. And yeah, I feel like I talked a lot. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna talk 10 minutes, and now I'm like, oh my god, looking at the time. So yeah.
No, we really don't mind, because we are absorbing all this information, and I know that it's helping somebody out there who's also just trying to carve out their own path, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I love how you emphasize that, people will throw in suggestions like, oh, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But you are so intentional about where you want to go. And I think that's where a lot of people miss it. A lot of people are not intentional relating to where they want to take their career. It's like, oh, whatever comes my way, I'll just do it. Sometimes it works out, but I think being intentional is so much better, because you get to navigate the path that you have set for yourself. So you don't have other people's expectations that are weighing you down and all these other things that can depress a person. So thank you so much for that, Leila. Regarding what you said, I have many questions. I'll try to sum them up so you can answer them after Ratidzo has spoken. So now, Rati is going to be speaking to us about the careers that are available in legal tech in Africa. And before you dive into that, so now that I know what legal tech is, and those that didn't know, now that we know what it is, I just want to know, like, how did you get to distinguish yourself from everybody else? Because for people who don't know, Ratidzo is a big deal in this space. So I just want you to touch on, how you got to distinguish yourself from everybody.
I'm a big deal. And I think standing next to these ladies, I'm a I'm a medium. These ones are the big deals. I'm still I'm the baby in this situation. But yeah, so this is what I love. I think also this is what drew me to this career slash industry. I'm very much a big supporter of women, first women, because this is one of the few legal spaces that I saw that actually has a lot of women, which for me was like, yay, it means I can be seen and heard, and it's not a struggle, because that's one thing that traditional law has. It really felt like an old boys club for me, especially because I'm one of those. I think people used to call me a weirdo because I decided I wanted to go into corporate law like very young. And I was then very intentional about the path I was going to take and how I was going to navigate all of it. So it took me a while to realize that it's an old boys club, which means, hey, I'm going to have to do a few things here and there to switch it up to stand out. So yeah, it was a very interesting kind of journey for me. And like I said, I was very intentional. I was one of those annoyingly intentional people because I got into university when I was still in high school. Like I was so excited to get started on the journey. I was like, I'm gonna apply whilst I was still in lower six and get my position set so I don't have to worry about it when I'm doing my exams. And my mother is a very big supporter of British institutions. She believes they're the ones that lead the way. I don't know where she got this, but I didn't fight her on this one because then I discovered in the UK, a law degree takes 3 years, where everywhere else in the world, it takes 5. And I was like, say less. And also, my parents are accountants, so they were just like, we see 5 everywhere else. Here it's 3. Less money we're spending. So I was like, we are all in agreement. The only disagreement we had was in another life, I wanted to be a professional basketball player. If I'm playing basketball, it would have to be the US and the UK. Hey, basketball is non-existent. They only know netball and football. So I think that was the only fight we had, but I still managed to make it a work for me whilst I was university in the UK. I still played basketball, much to my mother's disappointment, until she saw all the awards I was getting. And then she's like, oh, look at you, my daughter. And I was like, yeah. So I still played national level whilst I was still at university. So that was a nice thing. And then whilst I was in my final year, which is something I really appreciate about British universities, and I always tell people, if you can study law in the UK, I think it's a very good place to go. We had very good career guidance at my university specifically. And they were always very intentional about kind of talking to us at least once a year about, are you sure you want to do this? Are you okay? And they would give us like various peeks into the different kind of legal professions that were available. So luckily for me, by the time I graduated, I knew that it was not only traditional law that I had to go into. Like I didn't always have to go. And also in the UK, there are 2 very defined parts. You can go straight into in-house and you do the professional course for that, or you can go and become a barrister, which is what I think they call an advocate in South Africa. So I already knew by the time I graduated that I'm going in-house. So I wanted to be a solicitor, and that's what I was going to go into. And it's called the legal practice course, which takes about 18 months to 2 years. And that's what I kind of got into. And I moved from Birmingham to Manchester to do that. And then whilst I was in Manchester, luckily the legal practice course also is very intentional. You are attached to a law firm whilst you're doing it. So then you get very exposed to how a law firm actually works. And I was lucky enough to go and actually work in a corporate law department, because also Manchester is the corporate law center of the UK. So that's also why I chose it. So I had way more opportunity to get an internship, which was great. But then when I finished university, that's when the UK went through their little nice story of arguing with post-study work visas and all of this. And I was like, I don't have time to argue with people. I don't like confrontation. Weird, I'm a lawyer, but I don't like confrontation at all. So I was in like, I need to look at my options as to what's available. And I like to call myself a global nomad. I love to travel. So if I can travel and work, that's even better. And one of my dad's colleagues and friends used to work at a bank in Egypt called AfriExim Bank. And they were like, we have an internship program. Why don't you come and see what that's like, also because you want to work in-house. This is a good place to also explore that. And I was like, okay, great, I'll do that. I thought I was going to be in Cairo for 6 months. Nope, it turned into 2 years. And I think that's also the first time I discovered that I have a big personality, but I have a very small social battery, which is very weird. But it was a very good place for me to actually kind of work that out and see how that works in a professional space. Because at university, it was easier to navigate because we didn't really talk to each other that much. We had 2 hour lectures and that was it. I didn't have to people that much. So I didn't know that I actually have a very small social battery, even though I enjoy my work and the like. So the internship was very broad based and it was great because it focused mainly on corporate and transactional advisory, which is what I wanted to go into. And it was very different to when I was doing it at the law firm in Manchester, because this was very finance based, because it's a trade and finance bank. So they did very big transactions and I got exposed to a lot of different types of lawyers as well, because they work with most of their clients are like governments and very high net worth people. So those kind of people have very fancy lawyers and they mostly deal with the partner levels and not like the associates and the candidate attorneys that I was used to. So then it gave me a very good exposure to what that kind of life is if I do want to go back to practice, what it would look like. And I was like, I thought maybe I could go back. Yeah, no, I think in-house is where I kind of stay, and mostly financial institutions or maybe Big Four. That's the most I can do. But I knew it was never going to be a law firm I'm going to go back into. And then whilst I was there, they said they wanted me to get admitted into any African country because it was one of the requirements of the bank if you were going to become part of the legal department. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. Fine, if you insist. And I went back to Zimbabwe, which is my home country. And I thought this will be a good place to do it because for me, I'll get to spend time with some of the family that I had missed whilst I was away on my little travels. And also I thought it's home. It shouldn't be difficult to navigate. I lied. That turned into a little 5-year roller coaster that has a lot of ups and downs. And unbeknownst to me, the Council of Legal Education was going through what was going to turn out to be one of the biggest scandals because there was a lot of bribery and ethics that was going on that was not working, which is why I also resonated with Lisa when she was talking about her baby lawyers and the like, because I had to do the bar exams in Zimbabwe. And because all of this stuff was happening in the background, unbeknownst to us, they were targeting very specific lawyers. So if you're coming from the UK or if you're coming from the US, they knew you had the financial backing to pay the bribe. So they would just come up with very arbitrary and insane stories and be like, just pay us this amount and then you will just give you your certificate. And I'm like, this is the biggest mindfuck ever. I'm a lawyer and ethics is here. And you're trying to make me break ethics to get into the profession. This is not making sense. It's not make sure. I'm not going to be that person. And it kind of felt like I was being punished for trying to be straightforward, because I then ended up having to do one exam 7 times. And please understand, I've never failed an exam in my life. I was used to being the straight A student who comes home every day. It's like, mommy, look. And then now I have my parents looking at me like, and then you've been here. It's been 3 years, ma'am. What's going on? And especially when the pass mark is 50%, it was like so jarring for me as well. And it was a interesting time for me because being an athlete, I'd like to think of myself as very resilient and I will work hard to achieve that goal. And it kept feeling like the more I get closer to it, then I'm get chucked right back at the line again and I have to start all over. And I'm just like, this is hard. And also doing the conversions in Zimbabwe, you have to be attached to a law firm. So I'm like, on top of that, I have to work a job that I know I don't like, but I have to pretend like I like it and also meet my targets every day. It's really just weighing me down. But I like to focus on the silver lining in anything. So I was literally just kept motivating myself, and I was very grateful that I have very good, supportive family because I put my parents through a lot during that 5 years because I was depending on them a lot financially, and which is very hard for me because I was very independent and I was always that person who had my life in order and I used to cover myself, and this was the first time I had to depend on my parents. And I had felt like I was failing because I'd always been okay with it. And having all my other peers also succeeding because they were willing to pay the bribe. So now everyone's just like, what's wrong with you? Just pay the bribe. You think you're too bougie for us? And I'm like, no, guys, it's your choice, and for me this is a personal choice. I can't do that. And so that's also kind of a hard thing to do when you have to stick to your guns and stick to your morals, and that can only happen if you know who you are and like what you want in life and how you want to be perceived. And I was like, for me, God forbid this comes out 10 years later, I can't have this besmirch. And I'm like, all it takes is one social media post to be like, oh my gosh, she bribed somebody, and I'm done. So I was like, nope, that fear is much worse than anything I'll face. So I'll rather stick to this. And I stuck to it. And luckily for me, the last law firm I worked for was DLA Piper Zimbabwe. And the managing partner, who's now a very good dear mentor to me and a very nice man, was like, no, come join my law firm. We don't, the conversions are not important. What's important is your career development, and let's see where you want to go. And I was like, oh, okay, let me do that. At least you're not holding this shadow over my head, and maybe I can finally actually explore what I want my career to look like. And whilst I was there, that's when I discovered legal technology, because at DLA Pipes, they were very big supporters of practical law, but they'd also then come into partnership with a company called Exigent. They're based in South Africa, and they develop very specific tools for specific firms. So they customize legal tech for firms essentially. So I was like, oh, what is this legal tech you speak of? Because I am very, after all of those 5 years, I was very much, I want to work smart, not hard, because clearly hard work is just too much work, and I don't know if I have it in me right now. So anything that you tell me that makes my life easier, I want to know about it. So, and that's when I also met Ruth for the first time, who was supposed to be here, because she was one of the main product developers that you'd sit with when you're developing your tool and everything. So I was like, okay, this sounds like something I could do, and I get to use my law degree. And I was like, I'm thinking about what I'm going to do after this, because I was like, after these exams, I'm done with practice. I don't want to see any other law firm again. I'm done. And Ruth was telling me a lot about how Exigent works and just what legal technology is. And I was like, okay, this might be something I do. And then COVID hit. And then, of course, like anyone who was working in a big law firm knows, COVID was very hard for lawyers everywhere, because they just set very unrealistic targets for us to do work, because they think just because we're at home, we're not. And as an African girl child, we know that's not. We still have other things to handle at home and all of this. And I was just like, I'm struggling to balance all of this. I need a timeout. And I now really need to see what this is going to look like, what my legal career looks like, because this is not what I envisaged when I was in high school writing my little notebook. I'm going to be a corporate lawyer, what. I was like, this is not it. I need to sit down and really rethink what this is. So then I resigned from my job at DLA Piper, and I was like, I just need a break. Luckily for me, the managing partner was like, no, take time. If you want to come back, tell me, and then we'll discuss it. If not, also, and you need me to help you go anywhere else, also let me know. I can introduce you to certain people. I was like, thanks. So that's when I came back to Botswana, and I sat down and I was like, oh, let me just take a break. Much to my mother's sheer anxiety-inducing fear. She was like, what are you going to do? Oh my gosh, my lawyer child wants to come sit at home and do nothing. And I was like, listen, I'm not going to be useful to you if I continue down this road. So if you want me to still exist as a human being, let's take a break. And that's when I also, whilst I was on my break, I was like, let me just research to see what's out there. I want to use my law degree. I don't want to just sit there and switch careers completely. I still want to use my LLB. Let's see what's out there. I discovered a lady called Sarah Uwis. She has a very famous iceberg that she posted on her socials in 2020. And it talks about, oh, so you have an LLB. You thought this is what you can do? This is what and I was like, ooh, what is that? And so I kind of went down a rabbit hole, as I always do with everything. And I discovered that there's much more that was there. And as well with the information that Ruth had given me, I was like, okay, so let's really see what's possible in this. That's when I discovered Leah. And I was like, ooh, representation matters. There's someone who's like me, who's doing this thing. Let's see. And shame, I bombarded her with so many messages and texts. I was like, this woman's going to think I'm crazy. And it was also around the time she was being honored by the American Bar Association for being a leading woman in legal tech. And I was like, okay, so this is an actual thing. I think I might be onto something. And then I attended the award ceremony. And like I do with all the stuff that I attend, I live tweet and I kind of talk about everyone. And I was like, okay, guys, if you want to know more about this, find out about this lady. She's a cool lady. But then my then boss, then there's another lady who was being honored. Her name is Nicola Shaver. She's my previous employer. she was also being honored. Now, her CV looks literally the same as mine. She started exactly where I started and then kind of pivoted outwards. And but she wanted to solve problems for lawyers. And I was like, okay, I wasn't at the problem solving level yet. I was still at the let's just see what else I can do. And then I kind of spoke about her, and then she reached out to me and she's like, you tweeted about me, and now all of these people are kind of asking me who I am and what I do. Who are you? And I was like, oh, me? I'm nobody. I'm just a little girl trying to figure out this life thing in the law industry. And I like seeing women who are in law and are doing big things. So you are one of them. And I was very happy to see that what I'm trying to do is actually possible, and I'm seeing it from different angles and different perspectives. So, like Leah says, if you see someone who's doing what you want to do, at least kind of validates what you're thinking, and you're like, okay, so I'm not crazy. There's hope. Let's kind of see where this goes. And we had a conversation, and she's like, I'm actually looking to hire someone. My team is expanding, and we're kind of looking for someone who looks like you. Let's have a chat with the other partners and see what can happen. And that's how I became part of the founding team of what is called Legal Technology Hub, which is basically a directory that tells you about all the legal tech solutions and the consultants that kind of work in the space, both legal technology and legal operations, which is a very good entrance for me because then I got to meet almost any and everything. So like Leila was talking, there's like a myriad of tools that are available for every type of practice that there is, from employment to finance, like anything you can think of. And there are different types as well, where it's like low code, no code, like actually coding. So it depends on your personal skill set and what you kind of want to go into. So it also helped me like kind of decide which part of legal tech I want to be involved in, because I was like, okay, I know that I like people, but I don't really like people. Like how can I use this? I'm an empath and I like helping people like figure out how to solve their problems and implement a lot of tools. So I was like, okay, and I know that probably implementation, pre-sales, product development is kind of where I'm going to fall into, which was very helpful for me because I was like, if I had not been in the spot, I probably would have been just sucking my thumb and be like, oh, let's see what that happens. Okay, no, come back. Let's see what happens there. Oh, no, come back. So I always tell people, like when they're kind of going into the legal tech space, I always suggest Legal Tech Hub because it's a very good space to start and kind of see what's available. And then you see the vendors that are there. So then you also see what jobs are available, because the website kind of breaks down into a lot of different things. So you can see like continent based. Are you interested in North America? Are you interested in Asia, or like whatever you're interested? Are you interested in tools that work in Africa as well? Then you can see the companies that are actually hiring for these kind of positions. So it's like a very good place to start. And for me, then it also kind of introduced me to people, but it also taught me how important community and networking are in the legal tech space, which is something that I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm home, because like the legal tech community is big, but it's very small at the same time. So you'll find that a lot of the jobs that are available, they're not advertised on job sites and stuff like that. You'll hear them from like talking to someone, or, oh, I know this person. Oh, are you interested in this? Oh, I know a person. Like that's how a lot of it happens. Just like how I got my job. I didn't have to apply for it. It was just a conversation that happened and we kind of found a synergy. So because it's like that, you have to be very sure about what your skill set is and like what your, I like to call them your superpowers, because for me, I know my superpowers is networking, community building, and problem solving. But for me, I always call it creative problem solving, because I'm not just going to solve your problem. I'm going to make sure that you guys have fun while we're doing it, because I feel like when you have fun doing something, you remember it. And it's just like because you were enjoying it and it didn't seem like it was such a nightmare and stuff. Because the other thing you find with legal technology, especially like in the space I'm in Botswana, it's novel. So people here are just thinking, one, you want me to spend money. I'm still worried about my lawyer's meeting billable hours, and you want to make me spend money? No, I don't want that. So you have to kind of make it very enticing for the law firm to kind of buy into what you're selling. And also, because it's creative, now people also get bought into it. Because another thing that we know, especially in the African space, people have to buy into the idea first. Because if they don't buy into it, you're gonna struggle with implementing whatever it is that you're trying to implement. So you have to make sure that they're actually enjoying the process and they buy into your idea. Because once they do that, it makes the process significantly easier, and also allows people to kind of buy into the process, and they'll help you along, and it makes your job so much easier. So those are the kind of things that I always tell people. If you're coming into the legal tech space, you need to figure out your superpower very quick because that's going to be like your own USP and kind of what you bring to the table. And then it also helps you figure out which department you're going to fall into because, like I said, there's a lot of them that are out there. And because Africa and the UK are still kind of figuring it out compared to North America and New Zealand and the Pacifics, there's room for shifting and kind of molding your own like unique little job title. So if you are good at emphasizing what it is that you know, it's much easier for someone to kind of hire you and look at you and want to work with you because they're like, okay, she clearly knows what she's good at and how she can help me. Let's talk. So I always tell people, even if you're not going to pivot into a new space, just in general with job hunting, especially in the legal industry, you have to know what your superpower is and what you are passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about it, like I'm passionate about corporate law, but it was because of the way I was practicing it that I was just not enjoying it. And I knew very quickly that I was like, clearly the space I'm in is not working. But legal tech allows me to still use my corporate degree because a lot of the legal tech vendors that I was drawn to were people who were in the contract lifecycle management, contract space, drafting space, specifically to contracts or contract review. So I could still use my degree and whatever I was doing in practice and kind of bring it to the legal tech vendor and be like, okay, so when I was in practice, this is what was a big pain for me. So if you solve this for me, I'll be like, take my money. Here it is. Like you help me and make my life easier. So I was like, that is things that you just need to know how to do if you're going to be going into the legal tech space. And the legal tech space is a lot of talking. So as you can see with all the ladies who've spoken here, you have to be able to hold your own in a room and talk to people. And basically, so for me, I just had to learn that I do a lot of my talking virtually and like on on behind a computer screen because at least then I know my social battery is not suffering because also I know what it looks like when my social battery kind of runs out, and that's not always a good look for someone who's looking for people to hire them and the like. And unfortunately, presentation matters. So you have to be very wary about where you kind of fall short and try as much as you can to turn it into strength, because I think that will always, then no one can use it against you. Because like for me, I was laughing with Leah earlier on. I was like, anytime someone says, come speak and here, do you want to introduce yourself? I'm like, I get so anxious when someone wants to introduce me. I'm like, please just read the bio. It makes me feel like I'm somebody before I speak and then here, you know? So at least I know that's a big falter for me. So I always make sure that someone else can builds me up just a little bit, and then it makes it easier for me to speak. So if you know whatever your little weakness is, it makes it easier for you to kind of deal with it and learn to grow out of it if you can, because it then helps you along the way. You get people who are like, okay, no, I know how to help you. And also, it's just fun to know what you like, guys. Like I think it's one of the things we don't talk about much, but knowing what you want also helps you then know how to go for what you want and how to navigate. When you're sad, if you know that it's what you want, you'll be like, okay, no, but I decided to do this, didn't I? Okay, so here we go. So things like that. So in another life, I think I'm still trying to figure out how to mesh my legal tech passion with my basketball passion, because anyone who knows me, basketball is like me. So I'm still trying to figure out that one. I might bring something to the table, I don't know, but I'd like to end this with, guys, legal technology is not gonna steal other people's jobs. It's here to make your life easier and make your life more efficient and make your life better. And it's also that little toolkit that if you have as a lawyer, it makes you highly sought out, because then you look like you are very with the times and you're keeping up with what everybody is saying. It makes it easier for you now to charge that £200 an hour, because then people are like, oh, but she's telling me that she knows this tool and she knows this, and you're brave enough to charge £200 an hour from your house in Johannesburg, or from like me, my house in Bots, because people are like, okay, she might be in Africa, but she clearly knows what she's talking about and she's keeping up. And that's also that thing we need, because in this day and age right now, like she said earlier, there's not enough jobs for us out there. So you need to have something that's kind of putting you aside from everyone else. So if you didn't go into the traditional and get your articles or that internship that you wanted, you can still look like a cool kid and be like, okay, I didn't go into the law firm, but I have a certificate in Clio and I know what they do and what they're doing in your law firm, and I can make you save money on all those inefficiencies you have in all your departments. Hire me and I can tell you exactly how to save money whilst you're making more money. Now, there's no law firm partner in this world who's going to say, did she say save and make money at the same time? Come here, little person. Let's talk. So that is what legal technology is meant to do. It's meant to save money and make you money at the same time. So once you have that kind of toolkit with you, it makes you a bit more employable and kind of opens a bit more doors for you as a potential employee. So yes, that's me.
Thanks, Rashi. That was a pretty tame. That's a very very polished presentation. But yeah, I mean, what you touched on. Now I lost my train of thought now, but um, I'm all for. I think I told you ladies at the start that we need to bring our whole selves to talking about our careers, and all of you pretty much touched on that. So, oh yes, what you said, Rati, was you got to know why you're getting into it, because when things get hard, and they will get hard, you got to keep yourself going, um, and of course you talked about your superpowers. I also tend to refer to it in that way. I think those are the what we call the soft skills. Those things that you don't get a qualification for, you don't have to study for, and it's so easy to, if you don't have them naturally, it's so easy to imbibe them. And those are the things that actually make your career work. So in legal tech, like you guys spoke about curiosity and other unique skills that I've not heard of, or I don't necessarily punt, but if you have that underlying, what you're doing, then there's just this drive on the inside that keeps you going. And the same goes for any other type of legal career, any career for that matter. It's like, and I find it particularly difficult on my end with what I'm doing, as much as I said I'm in my space. And Sheila and I were chatting beforehand. There are times I just want to give it up and throw in the towel. Um, sorry guys, just
We all do. Don't worry.
I was about to
I
say, I was
do.
like, I think if you're not feeling like you want to throw your head in the towel, you're not doing it right.
Maybe
There
you're
has
not
to be
doing
like
it right.
has to be one existential crisis at least once a month. And you're like, okay, I'm alive. Woo! We almost lost me for a second, but yes,
One
we're
small
here.
breakdown a month is required, at least.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
I'm going through
shake that.
one.
Oh no, we're here with you.
See?
No, we're right. We're right here with you.
sorry guys, my
No
brow
problem.
my browser is not playing ball today. So yeah, so like I was saying, there's all these things that underlie what we have to what we love to do, that even when we want to throw in the towel, like I find myself wanting to do very often, I just get up and I keep showing up and I keep doing the same things every day, because as I said, in some weird way it still makes me happy, with all the grief. So I like that you guys pointed that out. It's not so much about the hard skills, it's about creativity, it's about curiosity, it's about, putting yourself out there, networking, um, persisting with making connections, and I think both Leah and Rati spoke about just being a nuisance, a plain nuisance, and inboxing people and all of that. I mean, if you really want it, you're gonna go and get it, right? So I think those are the three. If anyone takes anything away from this round table, it's if you've got those three things, and of course you are into maybe tech stuff already, or this is something that takes your fancy, then I mean, start exploring at the very least. So, and of course, connect with these wonderful women whom I think we will not see again. So, this is just one of many conversations that you'll probably have. So, I hope this video will be a constant replay and that you will reach out to these ladies and have the conversations that matter outside of an event. I'm not event based, so an event driven. We must have conversations outside. So please reach out, connect, be that nuisance. They basically invited you not to be a nuisance to them. So ask the questions and be curious. As they say, curiosity is very important in this field. So yeah, thank you again, ladies. I know it was short notice, and I haven't met many of you before, Leila or Leah, before. But I like the sense of community, even that you guys have, and we brought that energy to this roundtable. Sheila had to run away because she had a call to take at 8 o'clock, so that's why I'm rounding it off today. Okay, so thank you so much, ladies, and we will chat soon. And to those who will watch this video, please share it, catch us on LinkedIn, and just talk to us outside of this event. And we hope that we've inspired you and will continue to inspire you. Follow us and, especially these ladies in legal tech, and hopefully they will be that catalyst or that inspiration that you need. So thank you so much for watching.